Welcome to the Salt Lake Podcast, where we go beyond the hunt to explore the truths and challenges that every hunter faces. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most heated debates in the hunting world, captive bred lions. It's a topic that serves deep emotions and sharp opinions, but here, we're not shying away. We're getting real, asking the tough questions, and exploring what it truly means to hunt ethically. Joined by Doug Cockcroft from Splitting Image Taxidermy, we'll pull back the curtain on the complexities of ethical hunting, where conservation meets controversy and where the line between fair chase and exploitation is often blurred. This is more than just a hunt. This is a conversation that needs to happen. Stick around, because by the end of this episode, you'll have a deeper understanding of the ethics that guide our sport and the decisions that shape the future of wildlife. Let's get started. So let's switch gears real quick. Let's talk about ethical hunting practices. And I think where I'm going with this is there is this, and once again, this is coming from the States, there's the idea of these high fence farms and canned hunting. I have a very specific thought process in mind in the way I explain this to people, but let me hear your thought on that. What is your ideal of ethical hunting in relation to hunting high fence properties?
I have zero tolerance for unethical hunting. Period. Done. For me, there's no gray area. Hunting is going into an animal's environment where it's fair chase and the animal has the opportunity to outwit the hunter. Okay? Just because there's a high fence doesn't mean the animal is robbed of its opportunity to outwit the hunter. Every animal has a home range sort of area. That is the area that these animals will naturally move in and self-regulate and self-sustain their food source. Some animals need a bigger home range, others a smaller home range. There's a lot of our game that have no respect for a fence, and they'll jump clean over it. So as much as you try to put these fences around this piece of land that's owned by man, an animal looks at it and says, I want to go there. And they go. Done. Eland, I've seen them jump 17 strand fences. Kudu, regularly. Nyala will go underneath them.
I just watched it a week ago. We were hunting kudu with one of my guests, and we decided to sit on a pivot down in the land, and we watched the kudu come out of the mountain, jump the high fence that separates the pasture area from the pivot, and just go over like it was nothing. They didn't even care.
Hop, skip, and a jump.
Yep, just kind of back up and right over.
You're not stopping them.
You're not stopping them.
No, so you're talking about a 3-meter high fence, just done instantly. Never.
That's it.
Didn't even need to run and start. Just kind of ease up over to the fence and just go right over.
And then the question is, how big is the area that the animal's jumping out of or into? Ranches in Africa are big.
Yes.
I mean, a 2,000 hectare property in South Africa, that's normal. That's what, 4,500, 5,000 acres?
4.5, mm-hmm.
Right? There's a number of properties that are all over 10,000 hectares, and it's hard hunting.
Yeah.
Ethical hunting, I believe, there's the spot and stalk. A lot of guys use vehicles to move around properties, but don't necessarily, and this is the perception again, don't necessarily drive by and,
Left front.
Throw a cap at them. But you need the 4x4s to get over some pretty harsh terrain.
The mountains, you can't get vehicles up there.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
So you're going to walk, and you're going to have to carry out the animal if you do manage to get in close enough. So high fences, all the high fences there for is honestly to create a boundary between one ranch owner and the next. Because that old saying, good fences make good neighbors, that's what it's there for.
Very much true.
Done.
We did a cull hunt the other night. So, and this is a little different in that when we filmed it, I knew that I couldn't sell it as a hunt, that I needed to sell it for what it is. Yeah. And on this, it's part of Chris's free range farms that they have there, which is 66,000 acres, and there are
thousands of springbuck and thousands of blessed buck and fallow deer and just on and on
Absolutely.
and on. And, in order to keep the land healthy, to sustain their cattle and sheep populations, we've got to cull a bunch of these animals. And when Quibus and I and Mike talked about it, we understood that, hey, I can't sell this as a hunt. This needs to be what it is, and we're going out to do a job. And it is, though, it does provide for the farmer, their families. It brings in some income because they're able to sell the meat. It's a little different than hunting.
Yes, it is.
It's squeezing the trigger, and while it can be enjoyable to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's the other side that goes into it. When you get into a situation like this, which is going to be like with what's going to happen with a giraffe, when you have to cull a bunch of animals, and people are going to see the video and where there's 50 animals piled up and one by one they're getting skinned and processed, you're just out killing. Absolutely. That's what we were out there to do a job for the farmer, because otherwise they're going to have to spend money to put feed out to continue the nutrition that their cattle and their sheep need to survive, or we can get rid of these animals and they can have all the natural browse that they need. And
it becomes cyclical. The animals move within their home ranges, and the food regenerates. Look at what happened in Botswana when they closed down elephant hunting for a while. That was chaos, because the population literally expanded and blew up. And an elephant has no respect for vegetation. They literally tear down anything in their path. And it's not that they pull a branch off, they eat it, they finish it, and they go, right, now I'll take the next branch. They're playful. They'll push a tree over and take off 5 berries and walk on and do it again. We are there as the custodians of wildlife. We have to manage the resource. We've
interfered.
We've interfered.
Yeah.
We put the fences there. We've interrupted the migratory patterns of animals for centuries. Now, it's our responsibility to take care of these animals. And if we don't, you're going to see a decline similar to what you found in Kenya. Take hunting away from Kenya. I was in Kenya in 2000 last, and I had the privilege of doing walking safaris through the migrations and seeing one of the world's true game spectacles. It's unbelievable. My grandfather and grandmother ranched in Kenya their whole life. The migration that they saw 40 years ago compared to the migration I saw in 2000 was about half. The reason? Take the hunting away, and suddenly the locals who want to feed their families, they poach, and they poach aggressively. You're in a position where by taking hunting away, you are directly influencing the outcome of that population. Done. But you're up against an emotional keyboard warrior.
Right, who's never stepped foot in this country.
I've always said they've got no dirt under their nails. They
No
don't
skin
know
in
what,
the game.
No skin in the game. They don't know what it feels like to be out there and see a population decline.
Well, I think that goes back to the blue wildebeest and the success story there.
Absolutely.
Can you tell our viewers about that a little bit?
Blue wildebeest, black wildebeest, bontebuck. Bontebuck's a big one. I think they're a beautiful animal. All of these animals, the minute you take away their home ranges, they cease to breed as effectively as they would have prior. Okay? Take the value away and make it difficult to hunt these animals, ranchers are going to remove them. So you can't have black wildebeest, blue wildebeest in the same area because of fear of crossbreeding. So there are various laws in place in South Africa that govern where you can have these animals. So it's not just a random case of, I feel like having a giraffe, I feel like having a zebra, let's throw a couple of sable into the mix. You have a document that is issued by a government organization that tells you what animals you are allowed to have on that piece of property. And if you don't have that piece of paper in hand, you can't go out and hunt willingly on a high fence property. You can't put a mountain zebra in the same area as you're going to put a Birchall zebra. So there's a lot of red tape. Good red tape. Bontebuck, with the downturn of permits being issued to bring them in from the States. I don't know, I can't recall if you shot a Bontebuck.
I did this year, just now.
All right, but now you're fine, because what's happened is there's now a DNA testing certificate in place that proves that the herd is pure, that proves that it is a sustainable population. you'll get an import permit. But for the last 7 years, we've been stockpiling bontebok.
Yeah. And this has been
One for a long time.
for a long time. I've wanted to hunt one, but because we couldn't export them, I'm like, all right, well, these off limits, and
It's just the way it is.
And then as soon as I found out that we could actually hunt them, and I talked to Simon, and he's like, oh yeah, no, and I think he phoned you or Warwick.
Yep.
I'm like, no, we're good to go, got everything. And he showed me all the paperwork involved with it, with the testing and yada yada yada. I'm like, oh my God, that's kind of a pain, but thankful, that I was able to hunt the animal and finally get it back. I've always wanted to.
Isn't it funny that, I'm just going to interrupt you, isn't it funny that as cold-hearted, bloodlusting killers, we've got so much regulation in place,
Right.
and we adhere to it, and we honor it.
Right.
Well, that's funny though, because generally those, the cold-hearted killers don't take much note of the law.
Well, it would have been just as easy for me a couple of years ago to shoot one, have it dip and packed, and call it a blush buck.
There we go.
And hope it makes it. Once it makes it over there, my taxidermist isn't going to care.
And you can't tell the difference when it's going over in a raw state.
No, can't tell.
And we had a lot of guys ask us to do it, and we lost a lot of customers because we refused.
Right. There's just, that goes back to the ethics, not only on the hunting side, but that transfers all the way through the
Doing things
industry.
the right way.
It's a business decision.
Yeah.
You can choose.
So back to ethical hunting, we've got a situation now where canned hunting is not only a thing in the States, but it's also a thing here. And I know the thing that comes up most is the captive bred lions and the hunting that goes on there in these small high fence paddocks where the lion, for lack of a better term, they don't have a chance to get away.
Nope.
What's your thought on stuff like that?
Don't agree with it. Simple. I think, as I said previously, I think it must be fair chase. I do believe that there should be offtake of lion. Lion breed violently. It is rapid. And the last thing you want to do is have a resident pride that ends up inbreeding all the time. So it is very important to manage the population, because as an A-type predator, there are other predators for a lion. They don't exist, other than another lion. But too many lions, and you end up affecting the local population of wildebeest and zebra and impala and all the rest. And the whole system's out of balance. So we have to once again interject and become the manager of that species, of that asset. Where's the value in a lion? With the hunting. It takes a lot of photographs of a lion to make the same value as one hunter.
Yeah, it does. So going back through the captive bred lion thing, so what we're seeing from an American perspective is that there are a lot of these captive bred facilities now that are breeding lions. And then from there, they're raising the lions to a certain age, and then they're selling them to different concessions and different outfitters. I guess the problem I have with that is that these lions have grown up tame, and they've lost their, not natural ability, I don't want to say, but they've lost their fear of humans from that experience, and then they're released into these concessions and hunted. What's your take on that?
Again, I don't agree with it. There's a word you used. Tame and a lion have never sat well in the same sentence. The minute something is familiar with human engagement, it becomes more dangerous. So from a hunting perspective, I also believe that people are taking their own lives into their own hands by pursuing an animal that has no fear, that can cover 100 meters in 6 seconds and is 220 kilograms of angry. So it's just not clever, right? But I don't agree with the principle of breeding that lion, releasing it into a small encampment, waiting for it to walk around in a circle, and then saying, well, it's going to be back, it's going to pass us again in about 25 minutes. And then you go and hunt it. I've got no objection to hunting wild lions. I think it's fantastic, because once again, we are adding value to the species. Look what happened with that lion, Cecil the lion, that whole story. A lot of people don't know how many lions were culled in those areas when they shut the lion hunting down, because suddenly there was just too many lions. So they just went in and, much like managing springbuck, they managed lions and cleaned them up, all for the sake of what? An anti-hunter who had an idea in their heads that that hunt was not conducted correctly, which in actual fact it was. Breeding of lions in this country is was and is big business. They breed fast. So the opportunity to breed a big maned male lion and turn it out to be hunted within a sort of a 7 to 8 year period, once that cycle is going and you've got these big lions coming through, the guys are selling them for a lot of money. You know what the cost as an outfitter and an agent is. You know what the cost of lion hunts is. What I'm pleased to see is that wild lion hunting is fetching a high tag. I think it's great. They shouldn't be a cheap hunt. It should be for a select few. It should be something that's out of the ordinary, in which case it's being used for conservation purposes and managing that environment. But putting them into a small pen and shooting them as they walk around in circles, they get fed a horse every now and again, no, I can't stand by that.
No, and I agree wholeheartedly. We've seen it firsthand, and it's just not something that, it doesn't make me proud as a hunter to see that practice that goes on. And I understand some people, that's the only way they're ever going to get to hunt a lion. Doesn't mean I have to like it, though.
The only way they're going to get to kill a lion.
Kill a lion. You're right.
Because I'm a hunter, you're a hunter. Right?
Man, and do it the right way, right?
Hunt it.
Or don't do it.
Or don't do it.
Or don't do it, exactly.
Right.
But the thing is, they want the opportunity to take a photograph, put it on social media, and get a whole lot of thumbs ups. That there, it's one of the biggest poisons in this industry, is the need for that backslap thumbs up like.
Good job, sir.
From people that are not your friends, they just happen to follow you on some platform. So unfortunately, I'm quite outspoken where that's concerned. I don't need the accolade of saying I've shot a buffalo. I want to share a photograph. I'll get on my phone and I'll say, Sean, check this out. I had the most incredible hunt, managed to finally harvest this incredible buffalo for me, and this is what I did. I want to have a conversation with real people, and that's what hunting has done specifically for me and my family. It's given us the opportunity to be around people and create meaningful relationships. Your relationship with your guides. These are relationships that stretch a lifetime because you share these wonderful journeys with them while you're hunting. So I know I've shot off on a tangent. It's something that's very relevant.